Hi there and welcome to, or welcome back to Lorena's Labyrinth, and for joining me today. For those that don't know, I'm Anah. I'm the business owner here, and I try and share my information with you all as part of empowering you. And the yarning session, of course, is for me to update you on what's been happening. I have had personally a pretty productive week. There's been a lot going on behind the scenes, but I don't think it looks like when I look at the channel that much is happening, but it certainly is. I won't bore you with the details right now. I've got a lot to cover today, so I'm going to crack on and try and be quick, okay? So in regard to what's new this week, well, we have uploaded a couple of videos. We're still finding our rhythm around the creation of the content, because obviously quality is important to us. And I say us because, of course, I've got somebody that assists me with the graphic design, and she's a little meticulous, so am I. I give her work, she tends to make it a little bit prettier or whatever, but we want to deliver something quality. So it looks like not a lot is happening, but there actually is. We've loaded a short video today on the astrology channel using some of my AI generated fairy images, just for a bit of fun, because I like creating them, and sometimes I think that I create some really nice stuff, and I think you might enjoy it as well. Obviously looking forward to your feedback and what you would like me to do with the AI, because I really do enjoy creating it. We've also loaded the long-awaited spiritual hygiene video, and this is an essential component for health and well-being. Whether a person considers themselves spiritual or not, it's a really good practice to adopt, so that one's up. In regard to the numerology content, I'm working currently on the ruling number 10, also known as 1, because 10 reduces down to a 1, but we'll discuss that in the video. You can expect that to be loaded probably next week, maybe the early part of next week, and I'm going to continue working on these now. They're going to be scheduled as to when they're delivered. We're trying to get ahead of ourselves, actually, as part of maintaining the algorithm on YouTube. What else? I will continue. So yes, the plan at the moment is I'm going to continue with the ruling numbers, finish off the ruling numbers using master numbers as a ruling number, and then go over probably to the day numbers, but I'll let you know as I go. Anyway, so bearing in mind numerology is an extensive subject, you're going to see content going up for numerology for quite a while before it's completed. In regard to social media and technology, I'm going to combine this week, and that is because technology for me in Australia remains an issue that is a absolute thorn in my side, where actually the best way that I can get content up on YouTube is to get my colleague in Italy to download the content from where I'm creating it and then loading it up onto the YouTube channel. And it's just, to me, ludicrous that our speeds are as bad as what they are, but it is what it is. So in regard to the content and social media and websites, where we're currently at is that I will continue to put links on my Facebook page, Lorena's Labyrinth, when I've loaded videos. So if you're a Facebook person, you'll get to see it there. Realm Spiritual Advisors, that Facebook page, I'm not actually doing anything with it at the moment. Once again, it's because I really don't know what to do with the website at the moment. I just, as previously stated, I don't see any real interest from people for me to develop the website, and whether that's to work on it or whether it's to visit it. So I have to make that decision. I probably will close the website down and potentially even close the page down as well. But anyway, that's still sitting there. It is bizarre because I honestly felt that I was being guided to get the Realm Spiritual Advisors up and running, because it was a humanitarian cause for me, and it was something that I really wanted to do for people to help them manage whatever difficulties in their life, basically to make their lives a bit easier for them. So I'm surprised that it didn't take off, but I think part of it might have been that I was addressing a load of personal problems at the time while trying to develop that, and I think I probably made some very poor, well, there's no think about it, I did. I made some quite poor decisions in regard to sourcing the people to build the website, and they took so long to do it all that I actually think that it lost the market during that time frame. Anyway, that's by the by. Now, other people probably, I don't think everybody will be aware of this, but some of the viewers might be. I did start a Facebook group, Real Psychics, Mediums and Healers, back in about, 2012, 2013, where I was teaching people how to access and develop their intuition. And because obviously I'm big on charity and gifting people, this is all part of what makes me who I am, I guess. I was gifting free readings a lot for people there because I was concerned that those people that were poor wouldn't be able to access quality services. Anyway, what's happened is that is now just sitting there fairly redundant, and I'm not willing to close that at this point in time because I still feel that there's actually a need there. So if someone is interested in managing it and kickstarting it and getting its momentum back, then let me know through Facebook or through the channel or with a comment, and we can have a conversation, because I do feel that it's still important. It's just I don't have enough time in the day to do it, and there's still people requesting to join. So I'll be putting up some content on self-care in the next week or so, perhaps, and this is going to include information on boundaries and relationships, whether these relationships are work-related, with their family, with their intimate partners. These will be generalist and introductory strategies for building relationships and potentially maintaining them. I'll see how it travels in the video. It's a big video. I started it a long time ago, and I think I'll probably break it down into a few different sections. Might end up being a bit like the chakra and the solfeggio, where you've got the full one, and then if people are short of time, they can just look specifically at different things. Or because I now know how to do the chapters, perhaps just doing the one video will be enough. I'll see how it rolls, and then I'll let you know once I do it. I also realise, and I feel bound to make this comment about this image here, this is another one of my AI generated artworks. I was trying to do one on boundaries, and clearly this isn't it. I wasn't able to get a good one, and I thought, you know what, actually I'm just going to put up a pretty image, because I think there's something nice about looking at a pretty image. And as I was putting this particular video together, I started to question myself and think, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the wrong thing by focusing on really what is a case of most of the women that you see walking down the street these days are not as beautiful as the ladies in the images that I'm creating. And certainly it's feeding this whole discourse, if you like, that, women are soft and gentle and beautiful and all of that. And I sort of thought, because obviously I'm a social worker and we're not into that, and I thought, you know what, actually, I don't think it hurts for us to revisit these concepts of part of this is what a woman is, right? She is, but she isn't. In essence, women, we see it more with men now, actually. If I can speak, men seem to be taking greater effort with their appearances, like using more product, going to the barbers, all of this stuff, whereas women seem to be going the other direction, either letting themselves go and becoming grungy, or getting so much plastic fantastic inserted into their face or lathered on makeup. It's like, let's bring back a woman's natural beauty. Let's try and I'd love to see women just be feminine again. And I say this as a heterosexual woman who, birth woman, who probably could do with taking some care of myself, actually, and making the most of my own appearance. But it just seems to be that it's become very unfashionable for women to be naturally beautiful anymore. Anyway, I'm diverting, I'm waffling. I think in some ways what I'm talking about is actually I'm leading into here about that as long as we know, I think the issue is as long as we know that beauty, one, is in the eye of the beholder. If we're talking about physical beauty, it's in the eye of the beholder. One person's taste is not always the other's. True beauty does come from within, without a doubt. I worked in a photographic department for a newspaper many, many years ago, and that was when I learned that when it comes to models and these glamour models and all the rest of it, those photographs are touched up. I think everybody knows about it now. And I used to see women that were absolutely beautiful who felt completely inadequate because they were comparing themselves against these models on the TV. Anyway, regardless of this, what I want to do now is disassociate temporarily from the beauty of this image and that it represents the feminine, and talk actually about the divine feminine and the divine masculine, and blow a couple of myths there. So when we talk about the divine masculine or the divine feminine, we're actually talking about energy. We're talking about feelings, right? We're not talking about perceptions or ideas or thoughts, We are talking about what an image or what it makes us feel. So here is basically just another AI image, and it's not how I would define the divine masculine either, but it does represent it to some extent, and you might have a totally different view of what the divine masculine is. But in my particular thing or my particular position, I can look at this image and I can think, okay, I can understand why the AI generated this image, because we are looking here at a male who is armoured. He's got his swords. So he is the protector here, okay? But at the same time, he is also the provider, right? So there's elements here. Let's have a look. Let's unpack this. I wrote some notes down. If I was going to tweak this image some more, basically, I would do it in the way that if this was my ideal image of the divine masculine and potentially my divine partner, ideally you would feel safe around him. I say him, remember. I'm going to go into this a little bit more in a minute, but I'm going to stick to traditional pronouns at this point in time. You would feel safe around him because at home you would feel protected. And he would allow himself to be a bit vulnerable at home. But when he is out and he's got to fight for his family and all the rest of it, he would be absolutely fierce. He would be a good defender. All right. The armor at the same time represents that he's not really super emotional, potentially not in touch with his emotions at all. He may have feelings, but he will hide them, right? Because at the end of the day, if he exposes his vulnerability when he's going to battle, then that could compromise his safety, if you like. So the other thing is that in this particular image, the gold in the image is a masculine color, and it represents obviously the metal, the physical gold, and that refers to prosperity and wealth and also abundance. So we're talking about the provider aspect here. So also the other thing too, when we're talking about the divine masculine, we're also talking about the feng shui symbol, which of course is provide and protect. But that colour is represented by white, and that's not in this image here. Just stick with me for a little bit, okay? So the divine feminine, on the other hand, is, we're talking once again energetically, is soft and pliant and associated with the energy of nourishing, nurturing, and healing. Now, once again, this image, all my words within this context, will do these subjects or topics justice. The divine feminine, under the feng shui symbol, is associated with the colour black because the feminine energy is associated with the night and the illumination of the night sky, the moon, really, and this represents seeing past illusions and to be able to see the truth. So of course the divine feminine is associated with softness and gentleness and the mothering aspects. She's associated with a lot more too, so is the divine masculine as well. But anyway, ideally when you look at this image here, you're seeing a certain level of vulnerability. She's not ready for a fight. She's probably quite easy to take advantage of. Now just a reminder, we are talking about energy, okay, under the concepts of health and well-being and balance. Now I'm going to go on to the next slide. So when an individual is in good health, and this is when their internal masculine and feminine energies are balanced, they're not only able to nurture and care for themselves, but they're also capable of protecting and providing for themselves. Now, when a person can bring these two energies together within themselves, they are in harmony. This is the theory. And their relationships improve because if they partner with somebody, they're getting with that person not because they need to, but rather because there is a mutual regard and respect. They know that person doesn't need them, but that person is choosing to be with them because at the end of the day, these people are balanced individuals. It is all about the choice. Now, as for gender confusion or identity, I just want to make the point that when we talk about divine feminine and divine masculine, as I said, it is about an energy, whereas gender identity is about the biology of the individual. It is not related to their personal energy. A person, regardless of their how they identify or their sexuality, every single one of us will carry the masculine and feminine within us. And whether we're a biological male, a female, intersex, or anybody else, we still carry these energies. And this is why you can get women who are comfortably heterosexual appearing to be either masculine in the looks and the way they behave, and vice versa. It's also why you can have people that are not heterosexual appearing to be either feminine or masculine. It's divine feminine and divine masculine have got nothing to do with biology, not at all. Biology or identity, actually. Energy is energy, biology is biology, choices are choices. Being your authentic self means that if you're born with one biology and you want to identify as being of the other biology and dress like them, that's fine. It's not going to make you biologically the same as them, but energetically, you might actually be the same if you are. I hope I'm making this clear. A man can be highly feminized and a woman can be highly masculinized. It doesn't make them less of a woman and it doesn't make them less of a man if they carry an abundance of a specific energy. It's just life. And I think it's a pretty sad reflection of times when I'm stumbling over using my voice to say what I think and feel because I'm actually scared of censorship and ramifications. So I'm going to try and be brave here and just say it as it is, right? I respect that my path and my understandings may be different to others. And I'm happy for you to leave your comments, but please do be polite. Yes, but either way, everybody has to be authentic to who and what they are. Now, speaking of politics and political subjects, I recognise that the purpose of this channel is not to do a political commentary, if I can speak right, and that's not my intention. But I do think it needs to be recognised that I am a humanitarian and I am a social worker, and sometimes this will carry over, as it will do today, because I have a couple of humanitarian concerns. They're not related to the war. Please don't switch off. I'm definitely and deliberately not speaking about that because it's too distressing for too many people and I've stopped watching the news. So, I need a cough, just say. But I am going to be speaking to something else, not in great detail. It is political, but it's based on spiritual. There is a little conflict happening at the moment, and I'll talk to that. You'll see where I'm going. So where I hadn't initially decided to have a conversation about gender or anything political, as I've been doing this video, I've actually decided to take that pathway, but try and do it in a subtle way, or as subtle as possible. Okay, so the first thing is this particular thing here, this paragraph that we see on the screen. I've put it up in totality because I don't want to read it out to you. I just want to say that this is what I base my understanding on, and that is that there is laws of polarity, and the law of gender, which is masculine and feminine, covers everything in life, right? Because the feng shui symbol, prime example, you've got masculine, feminine. And I don't know if I've loaded the video on that, but if not, I'll be putting it up soon. What we mean by polarities of feminine and masculine. Okay, but anyway, I want to talk about the 105 spiritual laws because it appears that every man and his dog is claiming to own them. So this is just going to be a little bit of a roll here, beside from the law of gender. Read that in your spare time if you like. So just to be clear, I recognise that what is going on the internet is actually my own work. I created the document that is published as the 105 Spiritual Laws. I did that in about 2006. Now, I'm not going to claim ownership of all the laws and say, yes, I'm the one that came up with this great idea. What I'm saying is that back in about 2006, I managed to access a document and I couldn't make head nor tail of it. It was very deep for me at the time, and it spoke about content that I had never even considered before. So what I did was I got that document, which actually just had, I think it was about 2 pages the document in its original format. And what I did was I actually meditated, reflected, translated, if you like, and I believe that I channeled the information and I put it together for me. And because I was able to put it together, I shared it with a few people because obviously I'm always interested in getting feedback. Now, I say it was a problem because the people that I shared it with encouraged me to write a book, and I did. It was only a little book. And I had agreed with somebody who was putting himself forward that, oh, yes, I'm going to help you with this. What he was doing was actually trying to exploit me financially, which was a bit of a problem. So I learned that he had registered a business name. I'd planned to do the business. He registered the business name in his name, so he owned it. And at the same time, he set up a publishing company and he published my book online as a digital book without my consent, without us doing up a contract, and in a way where I never ever received any money. So where I'm going with this is, I was pretty unhappy, shall we say, when I started to see these 105 universal laws all over the internet. And I can recognise it as my own work because it's got my typos and I have the original copy, so I can check it. So technically speaking, I would be able to take these people to court for copyright. I haven't, and I'm not going to bother because I had to process this, because I would be a liar. I'm being straight up. I would be a liar and say that my ego wasn't smarting when I started seeing it up and it was author unknown. Nobody attributed to me that I was the author. So anyway, where I'm going with this is I've decided not to do it. I've built the bridge and I've reminded myself that the reality was that I was prepared to give the book away for free to anybody that wanted it in the first place, right? I'd only been talked into turning it into a book for marketing by this gentleman that clearly wanted to make money off me. Anyway, the only relevance of this conversation right now is because I'm going to come back to sharing this information and I will be discussing it on here. And I have a few concerns that somebody might try and sue me for copyright or claim my own work as theirs, because I also have noticed that the 105 Universal Laws is actually on Sacred Scribes. You can get it if you want to pay for it, apparently. But I think just speaking about them here, speaking about the content, I did a bit of a Google while I was doing this, and I noticed that there seems to be a lot of people that have used the content of the book to reach their own conclusions and put up their own blogs based on it. And for me, I'm good about that. I'm happy about that because I don't believe that it's one way for all. If people can take that content and use it for their own good or greater good, then I'm fine with it. But anyway, we'll be having a conversation about it, and it's relevant. The 105 Universal Laws are relevant to this video because I'm going to talk about it a bit more. So just to clarify, spiritual law is different to religious laws because they are impersonal and they are non-specific, and they're underpinned by a person's free will and the laws of karma, which is basically, if you understand the law of karma, it is for every action there is a reaction, and the nature of the reaction is determined by the course of action that was taken. Now, under spiritual law, free will is determined to be the law of God when, right? So we're underlining the when that person has aligned themselves with their the will of the Creator, if you like, and when they're pursuing and fulfilling their divine purpose. Now, activities that go against the free will of the divine are said to include those that are the domination of others, attempts to control or manipulate other people, and people that you try to have them capitulate to your will. If these are behaviours that you're doing, well, then you're going against the law of free will, right? Now, I'm not sure I want to bang on too much about it here. I'll try and get a revised edition put up because I'm fairly sure that I've changed over the last 12 years, and the way I interpret and understand the content may have changed. Maybe it won't, because I like to think that I was channeling when I created the book and that my guides were directly involved with the content. But as I do this video prep, I have been doing a Google, and I can see that other people also have built on the document because clearly they're looking at it from a different perspective. And I think, in an ideal world, we would bring the document to the table, if you like, and have a discussion about it in a group setting. That would be wonderful. I'm not sure how I would do this online, but as we talk, and I think I've always been very clear with the content that I put up, I don't claim to be an expert on any of this. I just am sharing information with you guys in the hope that it has meaning to you. It might help you, it might not be helpful at all. Certainly, it won't harm you, but it gives you something to build upon for yourself. Now, I think in regard to the content that I've got, as I mentioned before, you can find a copy of the document on Sacred Scribes, but I do think you've got to pay for it. There is one person online that has put up the whole book in its entirety, which is quite brief. I mean, I'm not so upset about it because I can see that people have benefited from it and the feedback has actually been quite positive. But the reason why I won't put up his website is because I've contacted him and I've said, to his credit, he's copy and pasted the entire document. He hasn't adjusted it, but he did put it up as author unknown. So I messaged him to say, well, the author's not unknown, here I am. And he hasn't responded. So I'm not going to promote his business. But what I will say is I did find a link here that refers to the 105th spiritual law, which is the one of free will, and does discuss what people can do, and it's an education and training site. So that's the name of the business on the slide there, and I've put a link into the description, or I will do, on how you can actually access the material. Now, the relevance of me having this conversation too is that while spiritual law differs from religious law, I say differs, but there is some similarity between religious law, universal law, and the laws of the land within a democratic society, of course, not everywhere. So spiritual law is also empowerment, logic, or philosophy, if you like. And in fact, if you've got any idea where these philosophies come from, the original document that I've found and worked upon, I would be very happy to credit the person, and I actually wish that I had kept that information way back when I first found the document, because I didn't know anything then about doing referencing and that kind of stuff, whereas I do now. But yeah, if you've got it, if you know it, please do put it down. I would be very interested, and I'm sure others would be. Anyway, there's a couple of other laws that I reflected on as well in the construction of this book that are all relevant to having good health and well-being on a psychological and emotional and spiritual side of life, if you like. And these are the law of judgment and the law of human relations. And I am going to run over these because I'm leading somewhere with all of this, okay? Just bear with me. Okay, with the spiritual law of judgment, it states that we shouldn't judge others as being good or bad, but rather that their personal and spiritual growth and evolution occurs when we are all comfortable to be our authentic selves with each other, which this means, walking in the truth of who we are. Because when we feel judged, we're going to hold parts of ourselves back. And I think you can hear this even in the video. Like, I'm fearful of being politically incorrect because I have spiritual and religious beliefs. So I monitor and I check my content, and you will pick up on it for sure as you listen to me more often. Right? So basically, the law of judgment says that when we are being authentic with each other and free of the fear of judgment, then we're able to express aspects of ourselves that might be called our shadow side, and we could explain that as the negative aspects of ourselves, or the parts that, if we want to get all technical, energy that are not vibrating at a high level, so that we can release that. So basically, a person who's got depression may be repressing emotions, and if they feel safe, they're going to explain why they're depressed. It will bring the stuff to the surface, and then they can become healed, okay? Or they can heal themselves through the process of talking. Now, the law of human relations helps us to define limits of behavioural control with others, and in the Universal Laws books, I refer to it as the third dimension. We're actually talking about the earth plane. And so what that law states is that we would be very unwise to be forcibly teaching, counselling, or guiding people to do any particular thing at all, because we as individuals all have within us, either latent or conscious, our own guiding light or our conscience, and that we, each one of us, is our own best teacher and our own best director of our actions and behaviour. And not only that, if we try and force somebody to do something that is against their will, it will be either met with resistance, refusal, or even rejection. So it's a waste of time to try and force them to do it. Now, more importantly, from a spiritual perspective, if what we are trying to force that person to do violates them to the extent that they can't function as an independent individual, or they become dependent on others for their well-being, or in the worst case scenario, if I can talk and get the words out, takes them off their path of achieving their own true potential, then this is harmful practice on the part of a teacher. So we have to make sure, as a responsible person, I have to make sure that what I do is never ever harmful. Now, because we create karma for ourselves at least, but the law of human relations also reminds people that the only real control that we have over anything at all is actually our own fine selves. And that is the only control that we really need. Now, so the problems that come within a democratic society, we're going to talk about this in a minute. So the social implications when we apply universal or the spiritual laws is that it doesn't mean that under the law of judgment that we don't have any responsibilities or accountabilities, because of course we do. We all have a responsibility under spiritual law to each other in the spirit of humanitarian regard and concern. How we treat one of us impacts upon all of us. So even if the only reason that we cared for other people was selfishly motivated, we should all be treating each other as loved brothers or sisters. This is under spiritual law. However, we do live on an earth plane, and we do have governments who make laws that might impact on our civil liberties, and this might be for better or worse, and it might intrude upon our ability to exhibit or demonstrate or act upon our free will to make our own choices. Now, when it comes to governments, obviously you've got many different types. Australia, of course, is referred to as a democracy. So particularly under a democratic model of governance, there is this endeavour to allow for the individual use of free will and decision making, and that's through the voting system, because if we don't like the policies that our governments make, then our free will is that we can go to the election and vote these persons out, or parties, right? And that's probably about the only way that we really get our free will shown, or I can't think of the words, I'm obviously a bit tongue-tied at the moment. But anyway, this democracy and voting is aligned with the principles of justice and free will. Now, from a social perspective, we can see currently what happens when a group of people attempt to dictate to another group what and how they should act and how they should behave, because we've currently got this whole politically correct expectations, and to me, which not only appears to be out of alignment with many of us from an ethical and moral perspective, but when we measure it against the universal laws, being politically correct in the way that many of them would have us be is actually a direct violation of our free will. I'm referring actually to the people that are being described more recently as being woke. I don't see them as being woke at all. I see them as being fast asleep. So a prime example of this for me, and I'm going to actually try and disregard the whole business of political correctness here as I go into this subject, is I am a woman. I don't care what other people want to be. That's their business. That's their right to express themselves authentically as who and what they are. What I reject and resent is when they tell me that I must identify myself as a cis woman, or whatever it is that they're attempting to impose upon me with their labels to define me and who and what I am. This goes against my own moral ethos. It's like, no, I'm answerable to my creator and my conscience. I'm not answerable to people who are attempting to force their will upon me. So suffice to say, the best way of saying it is I don't appreciate it, and I also don't I don't appreciate being told that I have to use pronouns. I'm a woman by birth. I don't need to explain and justify myself because I live by the laws of the land and the law of gender, which is my spiritual belief. There are two gender polarities, and because every single thing in life has two polarities, it doesn't matter what a person says they are. There is black. Black is always going to be black. White is white. And there is grey, which is a mixture of the two. And that's what we see in those images I showed you before about the balanced person. Grey is never black. It never will be. It's never going to be white. And black is never white. And white is never black. All of the colours are fine in their own way. In fact, they have beauty in their own way, including the grey. So the refusal on the part of those people that call themselves woke to respect my right to express my authentic self in my individual and unique way becomes a violation of the law of non-judgment and non-acceptance of who and what I am. And I do find that to be somewhat hypocritical, and this is why I say I don't believe they are woke. I believe they are asleep, because if they were woke, they would know that they cannot force other people to believe what they believe or to do what they do. But at the end of the day, we don't make those decisions. That's up to the government. They make the decisions, and their decisions will impact on us and potentially create health or mental health problems and even social conflict. Now, to condense this down a little bit more, if you look at what happened over COVID, now I am absolutely not going to go into a conversation about vaccinations and whether it's right or wrong. What I'm going to say is that you had two very different viewpoints on whether it was necessary, and they were very righteous. They judged each other terribly, and it became very divisive on a social level, where they were just pitted against each other. So in Australia, we even had states versus states, and the territories too, because people thought they were right. This is all about judgment. When people think they are right, they can do terrible things. So finally, we get where I was actually trying to get right from the beginning. So as a humanitarian, I believe I'm morally bound, based under my spiritual beliefs, to make mention of some information that came to light for me, which this is to do with the World Health Organization, that apparently there's about 94 countries that are going to go through some very questionable democratic processes where there is going to be a ratification. Now, I'm not fully aware of all that is involved with this. I would encourage you to do your own research on it. But my understanding is that we've got 6 months before our governments agree to international laws in regard to health, which is going to be directed by the World Health Organization. Now, they are doing this with the backing of the United Nations, so I'm not quite sure what this means or where it's going to go. I don't think enough information has been provided to us, to be honest. But I do have a number of concerns about this from a free will perspective, that spiritual law stuff, as well as the democratic social work stuff and humanitarian stuff, those values of my own. I have concerns because I'm not sure what the agenda of these groups are, because they have links to the World Economic Forum. Are they going to be making laws that relate to basically empowering some people's financial situation against the greater good of the human public? Whatever. The other thing is what does this mean for being able to express, freedom of expression, all these sorts of things. So I've got a lot of questions, but I've realised how long this is going to be, so I'm going to skip over some of this content, let you do your own work, and just say, because I have concerns about this partnership with YouTube and with WHO and with the UN, and then obviously the links with World Economic Forum, it's like, you know what, I think that I'm going to go over to Rumble. I will spend more time over there eventually, and I will end up putting content on my own website so that I can avoid some of the censorship. I don't even know if this video is going to make it up, but we'll soon see. So, if where it's going is if the World Health Organization starts making decisions for, I'll use Australian, for the Australian people, they are not our democratically elected leaders, and they actually should not be making any laws without consult to the Australian public if we've got free will. So, there becomes potentially a spiritual conflict there, or a religious conflict. The other thing is that under the Human Rights Declaration, there are a number of basic fundamental human rights in a democracy that are written here. Now, I will put a link into the content description as well so that you can access this document, because it goes into it in more detail. We've got freedom of conscience, freedom of thought and religion. We've got the right to freedom of expression, without interference, and to seek and impart information and ideas through any media, regardless of frontiers. This is a basic and fundamental human right. We've got Article 20, which is the right to freedom of association, and we've got Article 8, the right to remedy and appeal decisions. Now, that one becomes a bit of a question mark there for me, because if the WHO is making all these decisions and laws, what happens if things go wrong? Who is the one? How do they fulfill? Forget the who. How do we fulfill Article 8? And then there's an even bigger one. I'll go on to that. Now, let's not forget, when the UN created the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, this was done at the end of 2 world wars, where the best people in the world from multiple nations got together and mapped out what they believed would be the best course of action to prevent future wars and to ensure the well-being of the citizens of the nations who had been obviously to hell and back through 2 of them. So I find it deeply concerning. But anyway, here's Article 29, and I actually will read this one out. Everyone, because it's so important, everyone has duties to the community in which alone the free and full development of his personality is possible. In the exercise of his rights and freedoms, everyone should be subject only to such limitations as are determined by law, solely for the purpose of securing due recognition and respect for the rights and freedoms of others, and of meeting the just requirements of morality, public order, and the general welfare in democratic society. Now, this is the bit that should be in big bold print. These rights and freedoms may in no case be exercised contrary to the purposes and principles of the United Nations. So, the whole idea of having an international group, including the United Nations, making the laws for other countries is a little stark. It's, I just don't know. I don't know how it even fits in with universal law. Anyway, moving along. So at this point in time, my understanding is really quite limited about these changes. I'm not sure what the implications will be for each of us in this as citizens of these nations. I do know that you can probably get some more information from Lady C's channel on YouTube. I haven't watched all of it, but she tends to be fairly well informed on a lot of this content. What else? If you find information or you know anything, leave a comment, because I don't know what this all means. I'm just sharing information with you. What I do understand, and I could be incorrect with this, is that we've got 6 months before the laws are ratified and before it's going to basically be solidified within Australian law. And I think it's beholden to all of us to actually become informed of what's going to happen, how it's going to impact us, and if they can't give us a straight answer, then to apply pressure to our government. But we need to do it before they ratify. So we've got 6 months. Okay, so leaving it with you to follow up based on your own sense of judgment and your own understandings, your own moral and ethical values is where I'm going. So, like a bit of a child now, I go, well, there you go. I've given you the big news. I've given you the mud pie to go and have a look at in Google for your own information, and whether or not you want to take a course of action or whether you don't, totally up to you. I've passed the information along. But anyway, on that, we'll put that aside now and go and look at these pretty images, right? Here's some more of my more recent creations. They're in the very basic stages. I will continue to do artwork videos and probably load them each Wednesday. I'm not completely sure how we're going to use all the artwork ultimately, but you'll definitely be seeing a lot more of them, because I want to create some mood enhancement stuff as well. So you might see some inspirational messages go up, or videos You might see some music videos go up. This is all on the radar as well. I've got some more images to show you. Hang on. So here's a couple more images, of course. If you want something particular, if you want me to play and see what I can create, let me know. I've actually done some images for people. I just haven't sent them to them yet. But I know there's a couple of people out there that would appreciate some of the images that I'm making. Like there's one person who is deeply associated with Green Man. I've got a wonderful Green Man image that I'm going to send to him. And then there's another lady that I know who feels quite connected to Archangel, actually Angel Seraphina. I've done a beautiful image of her, so I will pass that one over to her. But if there's an image that you actually would like me to create and see what I can come up with, let me know. There's another lady I've actually done a lovely image of St. Francis of Assisi for her, so I must pass that on to her as well. But I'll share these images. I'm just holding back on them at the moment. I want to put more mood inspiring and uplifting stuff for you all. So my friends, if you've made it this far, congratulations, well done. Today was a big video. It went a different direction than I was even planning to do, but hopefully whatever content that I've given to you today, it's not everything spiritual is all light and fluffy, is it? Sometimes we've got to sink our teeth into the bigger things if we really want to be aligned and with the truth of who we are, the authentic part of who we are. Sometimes we need to talk, and it's not always easy, is it? But anyway, if you stayed this far, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I'll see you in the near future. Take care. Bye-bye.